the new Overlords Podcast, an eclectic game show where I'm joined every week by our very own Gamestradamus, my co-host Sema. Hello there, Sema.
Hello, Max. How's your 2025 going so far?
It is going great. Is Nostradamus a current reference, or is that you have to go back a couple hundred years?
I, I think Nostradamus will be always current.
Yeah. So, yeah, 2025. Yes, this is going good. I'm glad we've got you on because you are the seer of seers, prognosticator of prognosticators. They're our very own groundhog, which predicts the future of video games.
That's true. Everything I predict always comes true.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we'll do a little wrap up of 2024 also. How was your holiday season? Did Santa come? Was Santa good to you?
Santa was so good to me that I haven't even opened all the presents yet. I still have some to open.
Wow.
I'm a little bit.
Do people send things to you and stuff to you?
Yes, my sister came back from her Christmas trip with a bag of things, and we keep meaning to get together and open them up. But even though we do get together, we forget. But anyway, I was going to say I'm a little bit taken aback by how many people got me things that come in bottles. But that's okay because I'm enthusiastic.
Yes.
I'm not a big drinker, but I do like what I do drink.
They've got your number.
Yeah. Just like you and your goat.
Yes, I now have a thing, of course, with the goats, and my kids leaned into it. I mean, just a couple things so far, but I hope for more in the future. They got me this little goat statue, and this will go on the shelf back here for the podcast. And they got me, this is the little goat plushie, which I think is going to come with me everywhere. He is the best. So I have goat stuff, and I got this shirt and a bunch of, I'll show it next week. My daughter.
You didn't have that shirt already?
No, this is a new one. This
Wow.
was a Christmas one.
Looks familiar.
Because I wear a lot of these, and I told them I like to wear these, and I need another one.
That's good. They listen.
And my daughter knitted me a winter hat that is awesome. So I'll show that off next week. Just like a winter hat. But yeah, so we'll go through all of that and a little bit of wrap up on 2024, but we're mostly going to focus on 2025 and what's coming, what we think will be big. And this will be sort of like the big, most anticipated AAA. I think next week we'll go back to the games that we are currently playing and the games like the MMOs that we're currently playing and the games that have content that we think will be added. And we'll look at the roadmap for those next week. So this week's mostly focused on the most anticipated new title kind of stuff.
Right.
So, but first, let's talk about 2024 news.
Good news, everyone!
A fun way that I found to go back and find out what we did and what we played and what we talked about in 2024 was to rewind our game channel, our video channel, and go all the way back to our 2024 January, and then just look at the thumbnails. It's so much in here. It was so easy. I just then made a list of what was in here. Early in the year, it was Pal World. We played a bunch of that. We all played that together. Lucy, who's in the chat room, and a bunch of others, people were in there with us playing Pal World. I haven't been in Pal World much since we played it pretty hard at the beginning of the year. Lucy, have you dipped back in there at all? We'll have to find out if our game world is still running or if it's been copyright claimed out of existence.
When we played Coreborn, it must have been late to 2023.
Yeah, I think so. And sad news, that game was retired in 2024. It's tough to run a live service game. So we also played Enshrouded. You and I played Enshrouded together. We did a little bit of
That's
that.
a good game.
Yeah.
I like that game because I felt like it was, I mean, all the survival games have to figure out a way to differentiate themselves, right? But I like that one because it felt intuitive, like to get places and do things. It felt intuitive to me, which was a pretty good achievement.
And the game was stylized enough that I liked the look. I liked the art as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that the environment is voxel based, so it's a little bit of destructibility, a little bit of ability to dig, and not a lot, but a little bit of that. And I like that in a game world. It really makes the game world feel like something you can sink your fingers into, and not just not just a mesh that you're playing upon. Really interesting concept. Skull and Bones. I played a bunch of Skull and Bones, and I liked it. I know that game did not get as good reviews as I think it should have, but that was a fun time, and I think it's a good game. And I know for a myriad reasons it was panned to some degree by gamers. Because of some of the comments by Ubisoft, it didn't live up to people's expectations, for one, which is your first sin, and it's troubling for anyone to have big expectations to try to fulfill, and them having what they did in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and they could board boats and fly your boat around, a bunch of open world and creativity, and some of those big things were missing out of Skull and Bones. That was troublesome. And then the comment by the studio lead, the director, and talking about a quadruple A game, which everybody still gets wrong. And I still see this and I hear this constantly. So I love to take the opportunity to instruct everyone. Triple A, quadruple A, what they're talking about in triple A, what that meant and what it still means for people in the industry is how big of a budget it takes to make the game. Yeah. So triple A,
they've performed in a certain way and gotten through some test that made them AAA.
Right. And it doesn't mean that they're saying that they're like a 5-star. We made a 5-star game. Nobody.
Not like if they do poorly, they have to go back to the minor leagues.
Right.
They have to go back down to AA.
So AAA is typically around 60 million in budget, is what it used to mean. So when the studio lead was talking from a business side about the game and saying, yeah, this is more of a quadruple A game, it was, if you've got if you got games that cost 10 million, you got single A games, indie games that, cost $1 million and less. You got like the $10 million games and the AA. You got $60 million games and the AAA. And you start spending a couple $100 million on a game. Is it still just AAA? Yeah. No, yeah. I thought it was reasonable to say, we're getting into, with some of these games, we're getting into quadruple A territory. But so when you hear someone say AAA or quadruple A, that's what they're talking about. Just as a side thing. Not a rant. No rants in 2025. just some commentary. Nightingale. I played it. Did you get you? I think I dragged you into Nightingale, didn't I?
I did play a little bit of Nightingale. I liked the aura of Nightingale.
Yes, it's got that sort of Victorian era vibe to it. It also does a thing that I really like the concept of, which is procedurally generated mini worlds. So what happens was when you put the tarot cards into the portal machine, it's sort of like steampunky portal machine, you mixed the cards of what difficulty and what settings and what game, what dimension you were trying to go for. And there were 3 different cards you would mix and match, and it would then open up a procedurally generated little world of yours. And you could make it public so other people could come in there and use it too. And you'd use those side worlds that you were spawning to farm resources. And then you could pick one of them to make your home base. And it was also survival building. So you can then build a big mansion and build a sprawling estate and have a bunch of friends in there and that kind of thing too. So clever in the way they did that. Since we played it back in the beginning of 2024, they've done a lot of updates. So maybe that's one that we can circle back on next week and see where it's at and where it's headed, because it was early access. It was early in what they did. Enshrouded too. They've added a lot since then as well. I'm be interested to see what our game roadmap might be for a couple of those. Let's see. We played a lot of World of Warcraft. That was a big one. Oh, Fallout the show.
Yeah.
So we got Fallout. I played a ton of Fallout 76. That was great. It was a couple expansions.
I played that too. I mean, not
Yeah.
on your scale, but yeah, so I'm familiar. But yeah, the show was really, for me, a hit. I
Yes.
I kind of have the season 2 disease now, like, they're coming out with another season of Fallout, and I'm like, "Oh, can I live through another season of Fallout?" It was almost like I was too into it.
Yeah. I can't wait though. That is one that I will jump on right away. I'm sure. I'm not watching Squid Game right now. That's the news. I didn't even watch all the first season. It wasn't.
I didn't watch any of the first. Nothing
But
about Squid Game said Sema to me.
my middle daughter, the accountant, loves Squid Game. I think she's watched all of the second season already, and it just came out 2 days ago. So yeah, that one is great. And Walton Goggins and Ella Purnell. I cannot wait to go on more adventures with those two.
Yeah, yeah.
You and I played Grounded. I
We
just
did.
saw that. I didn't even put it on the list, but I see it here in the thumbnail.
That's right.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, that's a good game.
Yes,
I mean,
quite
I don't
good.
know why I didn't say that like every other game isn't, but yeah,
The rest of these games are garbage, but that is a good game.
I enjoyed Grounded.
Yeah, so did
Recommend.
I. That was a good one, and I think we should find more survival games like that we can pull you and our team into. And there's a couple there's one in particular on the 2025 list, which I'm not sure is going to come out in 2025 from Hello Games that we'll talk about. V Rising hit their 1.0 release in 2024. Played a bunch of that. You played that some too, didn't you?
No.
Oh, okay. That wasn't one that I
No,
told
but I
you
think
you had to
I think,
bite people and suck their blood, and you were like, nope, I
No.
noped out of that.
but there were some other guildies who did play it. Yeah.
Right. We had a little server for a little while. I think in 2023 in early access is when we were mostly playing it quite a bit. I spun it back up in 2024 when they hit 1.0 release, and we chatted about it there in episode 512. But V Rising is a great, I really like the vibe of Group V Rising, and it's a top-down survival action RPG.
What I remember about V Rising 2 is that you liked the building, how the building worked and what you
Yes.
could build.
I liked it. I like the building, and especially in top-down, the building feels really good in top-down. You get a game like Satisfactory, which is also on this list, and it's Satisfactory is all first person, and building in first person is okay. About halfway through your progression or maybe even a quarter of the way through in your satisfaction in Satisfactory, you get a rocket jetpack, which allows you to like fly in the air, and then you're doing like top-down building, because you can't do first person building. It's not nearly as
Right.
fun.
Right. I can see that.
So yeah, V Rising, and Forster in the chat room says they have big changes planned for V Rising. It's just so good, and the progression model is so good. They've got like 50 little mini bosses, and it's a little bit, do you get towards the end and it gets a little Souls-ish. Got to be careful with Souls-like, because that's a very particular genre, and people, rightly so, get a little prickly about calling a game a Souls-like, because it's not a Souls-like. You're not intended to die 50 times, and somebody who's really good at these kind of games, I'm sure, could probably get most. I got most of the early bosses all done in one try, but you do have to like learn the moves, do the dodges, roll iframe, roll through, learn the move set to get the bosses down, and especially in the late game. But that's a good one. Then Starfield came along. We talked a lot about Starfield in the run up to Starfield, and Starfield Shattered Space. But we talked a lot about Starfield in 2023 when it launched, and then kept hitting on it and catching up on it in the news. And then, I never finished Shattered Space. It's on my list that I am dying to go back to, but I keep missing it in my rotation to circle back. But we also got content updates that I thought were really good. And then the loosening of the restrictions, which is something else I'm excited to try out, and we're going to see more and more coming in 2025, is the creation shop. The player-made mods are now opened up where they don't disable achievements, which was one of the big reasons I didn't get into them when I did my first playthrough of the game, because I 100%ed the game of the 1.0 release. And I didn't want to, because I very rarely do that. I'm kind of over FOMO on achievements, but that was one I really liked and wanted to do. And I didn't want the achievements to be disabled by a mod. So I was off mods
Mm-hmm.
for most of the year. But that
Yeah,
was a good one.
I'm trying to sort of disassociate a little bit from achievements also. However, I like it when there's a reward for the achievement.
Yes. And that's something Garden to Goat is definitely going to have, because there's no cash shop, but we will have like cosmetics and decorations. We're going to have little achievements, and they will be Steam achievements too, but you'll get a lot of little rewards for getting them. Kind of excited about that. Star Wars does that pretty well. You get a little achievement and you might unlock a title or a decoration or a pet. And WoW does that too, right?
Yeah. In fact, that's what I've been working on. For this part of the year for WoW has been sort of time to catch up on some achievements.
Yeah, that's a good call. Chia. You played Chia and I did not.
I did play that. I did play. Chia was like an interesting mix of chill story and survival. Like, you're not really, I didn't get as far anyway as building things, but you had to go places and do things and unlock things. And there were sort of mild puzzles.
Yeah. And a fun little, would you say that sort of like falls in the cozy game category?
Yeah,
Or-
it was a little too cozy for me. Actually, there is an antagonist, and you're trying to find someone that got kidnapped.
Oh, right. Yeah. Your
But
father gets kidnapped or something?
Yeah, but still the music and the setting and it didn't hit for me because I wanted to go find out what happened in that part of the story, not go learn how to play a flute.
Right. If you,
But that would be in the way of getting, the next part of the story.
right. The games need to, it's tough to work out the pacing, but I find
it's how
like
you find that
Cyberpunk
balance.
2077 was very much this way. It's like, and Baldur's Gate, you're about to die. Your time is ticking. The world's going to end. But would you like to do this side quest where we're going to, play cards in the casino? No, the world's ending. The little Chia girl, her father's kidnapped. Would you like to learn how to play this flute? No, like I gotta go.
But the actual playing, I don't think was it a flute. Anyway, it did give you powers and stuff if you learned it. So it was part of the
needed to learn. You needed those powers.
Yeah. Right.
That was also the time that Once Human hit early access, and I played a bunch of that. Bunch of that. That was also another survival building in a way that I like, because it had a much more of a sci-fi spin to it. It's like sci-fi with Pokemon is sort of what they're doing. So there was a lot of almost like zombie sci-fi with Pokemon. The zombie part of it was the world, the land, the creatures were infected by technology. So you'd get like a zombie running around with like a CRT monitor as a head, and you'd to like fight them. And then you'd get a bunch of resources from them, and you'd use it to build up your base and your vehicles. You get to drive around on a motorcycle, and you get to mod it and things like that. It's pretty good. It's still out there. That's another one we can look at its roadmap next week. Played a bunch of, and there was a couple of the expeditions that happened in 2024 for No Man's Sky. So I know we talked about that quite a bit. There was episode 521 was all about No Man's Sky for that reason.
I did play some No Man's Sky.
Yeah. The end of year expedition replays, I think, are just about done. So what they do pretty much throughout the month of December, probably for about 5 or 6 weeks, is they pick a bunch of the expeditions, and each week they rotate to a previous expedition that you can play. It's like a little challenge, and it's a set of achievements and big rewards for completing those expeditions, which are really cool. WoW pre-patch came by episode 522, and that was a deal. And then I'm sure we did like a whole episode on it. The WoW,
Nosegate.
yeah, the nose. Did you see on the thumbnail there? We got the arrow pointing to the nose.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But War Within launched, so that was a 2024 thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we were debating on it, and that's another thing we're going to have to unpack next week. It's not very clear. I thought it was going to be one expansion a year, but you pointed out on the 2025 roadmap, towards the third quarter, they have expansion reveal.
Yeah, it's more of a year and a half.
Yeah, I think it's probably
I think
at
what
least.
they said was faster than previous cadence for X-Packs.
Yeah.
I don't think they were that specific, but yeah.
Makes sense.
The War Within is when I switched from WoW Classic back to WoW Retail.
Right. Yeah, because you were doing a whole bunch of Classic for the first half of the year. Classic.
Classic WoW.
By episode 526, Star Wars Outlaws showed up. So excited for that game, and it lived up to my expectations. Not everybody's, obviously, but in fact, they've done some updates. One of the main things that people sort of had a little bit of frustration around was a big chunk of the game is stealth play, and you're
Right.
sort of like required to stealth through this mission. And if you failed it, if you got caught, you would get kicked out, and you'd have to like redo the mission. And that frustrated some people. They just wanted to take out their blaster. And anyway, I started blasting. But that has been updated. That was one of the updates they did. They also got a new game director, and it sounds like they're going to be adding more to that game and continuing to respond to player feedback. Couple things about that game I thought were just brilliant, though, and is a really good model. The way they took just some of the little side mini game where you sit down and you order a meal. They made it such a, and you have to like play a little mini game. You have to press the button to get when it's done cooking, and like a little rhythm, or you press the button when it's the right time to press it, and like 3 different phases of this little mini game. But it was such a cinematic experience with the way the characters were animated. I thought it was sort of best in class way to frame that. Cinematic camera pans in between. You got the robot cooking the meal and the sounds of the cooking, and you're just like immersed in this little thing, which could have been just like a little pop-up mini game, click the thing to get the bites or whatever. And you're doing it for a reason. You're doing it to get the reward, which were you learn the recipe, and then you have this little snack that you can pull out anytime for your little pet. I forgot what his name is. Nix. His name is Nix. It would change his abilities and, turn him into a healer or do whatever else, or give him little bonuses. But those little kinds of things on top of a fun Star Wars game, I thought were really great, and some best in class elements of the game. Not for everybody, but definitely for me, that was great. Then we got down to Satisfactory, and as we saw in my Steam replay, Satisfactory.
Yeah. And I remember this period of the year, the Satisfactory time.
September and October here was Satisfactory.
Where's Max? Oh, he's playing Satisfactory.
77% of my time in September was Satisfactory. Yeah, that was crazy good. Really, really well done. And that was the 1.0 release of Satisfactory. It was in early access for quite a long time. Throne and Liberty. I played quite a bit of Throne and Liberty. That'll be one to see where it heads. I'd think when I was playing it, a lot. It was a big spike in the beginning, as you expect for that kind of thing, and then a fairly big drop off. But it's still a pretty populated of a game, so it's still out there. It's still pretty populated. I wasn't all that enthralled by it, but I didn't think it was bad in any way. There was just other MMOs that I would have gone for in its place. It has some strengths. It does have a very nice game world. It's sort of a different style of MMO. They had a lot of concurrent player goodness associated with it. A lot of players could be on the map to do these different challenges and open world events that I think was pretty interesting. Then we got Diablo 4, Vessel of Hatred, which another one that didn't have the best reviews. It was well reviewed and it was very popular. But hardcore fans got to end game in 30 seconds. The wikis revealed every possible secret of the game instantly. Every build was figured out, and then they were done. They bumped up against the end of the game much more quickly, which is sort of an effect of where we are at these days with how games work. All secrets are revealed instantly, within that, hours of launch. And you can work hard to try to avoid them. But the problem with avoiding them is some of these games are designed so you need the secrets. Like, how do I do a build? Like Path of Exiles. If you don't understand what the builds are and how it works, you're going to be in trouble. So Forrester mentioned the story didn't feel complete. That's also true. It felt like another chapter, and it felt like, it didn't feel like a sequel. If the story was very good and I liked it and I thought it was beautiful and well rendered, but it did feel like a chapter, not a full sequel. It felt like the first third of a sequel of a second movie. My kids and I are watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy over the course of the past few days, and so we had to break up the two towers, which my daughter accidentally called the Twin Towers in our group chat. Lord of the Rings, the Twin Towers. And I said, no, that's a very different movie with Sauron bin Laden. You don't want to watch that movie. So we're two towers we had to break up into 2 nights because it's 4 hours long.
I mean, you didn't mention that you were watching the extended version, but
yeah,
yes.
it's all extended edition. It's on Max for streaming. I have it on disc. I have the extended edition on DVDs, and it doesn't fit on one DVD. You have to have 2 DVDs. But I forgot, DVDs are old school. They're not 4K. So
Right.
I can stream it on Max in 4K, and I have a Max subscription for free from the.
Because your name is Max.
Yes.
They found out about that.
I wouldn't be paying for multiple subscription services. I've got Netflix. That's the one I pay for the most. And I have Prime, I guess. So that's typically, technically I'm paying for that one, but I wouldn't be paying for Max, but I get it. And it happens to be on that one. So great. So we watched the Twin Towers first half, but Diablo 4, getting back to that, the analogy, it felt like the first half or the first third of a second extended edition story. So we need more. We do need more of that. Hey, Stask is in the chat room. New World Aeternum also showed up in 2024, which was sort of the relaunch, rebranding, and updates of New World. New servers, fresh start servers, and they termed it relaunch into action RPG, but it's still the same MMO that it was to start. The gameplay itself didn't change all that much. What did play was the new player experience, which was much, much better than it was at launch. Not that I minded it at launch. I didn't mind finding my own way. There's crafting, there's RPG, there's exploration, there's gathering, all of that kind of thing. And there was enough of that to sustain me. I really like New World as a game and a game world. But the story of how it hangs together and how the narration goes and the characters that pull you through that they added since launch are great. They're really good. So if you need that to sort of round out your game experience, they've done a really good job with it in Aeternum. So that was a fun one. I had a lot of fun in that. And I know Stask is still in there from time to time. He is the company leader, whatever they call it, the GM of the AIE Guild in New World Aeternum. If you want to jump in there, I don't know if anybody's been in there lately, but we tend to circle back into that. The governor, that's right. Hello, governor. That's what it's called. Why is my chat window scaling wrong? I'm gonna have to fix that later. Not right now. But yeah, he's the governor of our New World game, and yeah, it's a good time. We'll be back in there, I'm sure. Oh, did you end up playing Dragon Age? Because it ended
Me?
up on Game
No.
Pass.
No, I did not. No.
Because
I do know some people who have, though, and really liked it.
yeah, like me. So we did our podcast on 534 on Dragon Age, and we titled it Dragon Age the Very Good instead of Dragon Age the Veilguard. A lot of people like it. A lot of people were so-so on it. Again, living up to the expectations, very, very difficult. There was a couple of hitches in mostly just in hitting those expectations that made it not the, glowing positive, 100% positive reviews that I think it deserved. Because it's just a well-made game. It's a very good RPG, single-player RPG, which people are saying that this is what they want and this is what's getting made. And then people say, well, it's not the exact way I wanted it, which is, everybody can have their own opinions, but we got to be careful with our expectations as players as well. I mean, like it for what it is. A little game got announced in episode 535. That'll be a 2025 release, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Garden and a Goat. We talked about that plenty this year. Brighter Shores early access towards the end of the year. I played a bunch of that.
I played a little bit. I thought it was fun and interesting to just check it out because I wasn't I didn't know what RuneScape in general was about to compare this to, so it was fun to see this sort of style of game.
Right.
And I can see the allure. I get why people get sort of into these games and then they just play them for decades.
Yeah. Right. I think there are a couple others in that genre of the lower poly, low poly but deep RPG, MMORPG that is going to make it a tough spot for it to compete in.
Yeah, and there's they're deep in a different way than what we're used to. Like the combat is not deep.
Right. Yeah, it's the opposite of deep. It's like just click, point and click.
Right. You can practically, yeah.
And then they were recent, so we don't need to say too much about them. But the last 2 episodes of the year were Path of Exiles 2 early access, which is very good. It's a game I like for ARPG. If you like those and you're looking for more of them, which I think is a great way to sort of think about it, not a different one and you can only have one. Let's have them all. And the Path of Exiles is very good in that genre. And then highly acclaimed and thankfully not the expectations weren't a problem for it was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, single player RPG.
Yeah.
And we played some of that and talked about that too. And the last thing in there, which makes me think of the Fallout show, we talked a lot about Secret Level.
We did.
So our last episode 2 weeks ago, we talked about Secret Level. At that time, we had only watched, I had only watched the first 8. You had watched a sampling of about 8, but across both.
Both releases or whatever you want to call them.
They released 8 and then they waited a week and they released the next 7. We could go back. I think the first half was better than the second half batch, but there was still good stuff in the second half as well. I am looking forward to, and I think they've been greenlit for a season 2 of Secret Level. Not as excited as Fallout, but that is a good one as well. So yeah, plenty of good things in 2024, and that was a fun rundown. Those are all really fun things to remember. But before we get into 2025, I want to say thank you, of course. Thank you for a great 2024 from everybody out there. This podcast is brought to you by all of you out there. I'm really excited to have so many years with the gaming community out there, all of our SWTOR friends, which sort of got us started for about the first 7 years, and then the last couple, 2-3 years of general games podcasting with a lot of SWTOR still in it, of course, too. Certainly thank you to all of our friends at the guild we play with is Alea Iacta Est, AIE-guild.org, AI-guild.org. You can find the team there. And everybody watching right now in the chat room, everybody listening, thanks everybody. We're looking forward to more in 2025. So let's talk about the future.
Difficult to see. Always in motion is the future.
Sema, you are the prognosticator. You're the Gamestradamus. I am going to be asking you as we go through this, I guess kind of two questions. One, I was thinking about this myself. Which of these do you predict are probably going to get pushed to 2026? Which will be a fun thing to just think about because I think a couple are. And then when we get to the end of the list, I want your prediction on what you think will be the Game Awards Game of the Year game out of these AAA most anticipated. Very hard. And as we have talked about the Game Awards, it's subjective. It's what the journalists think at the time. And there's recency bias for what happens to come out at the right time and the right place. But there's also just sort of like what hits a vibe that gets really, really popular. There's some really fun things in this list. So let's go through it. And you think about that, Sema. You think hard. You think about what you did.
Well, I already have a front runner.
Yeah, so do I. I think there's a couple obvious. There's a key obvious front runner, but I think there's a couple up there. Maybe we can even try to do a top 5. What we think will be.
I would love to be
nominations.
surprised. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, let's go through it. There's IGN has a good rundown. A few good streamers have some rundowns. I sort of collected up what I found across a collection of those sites for anticipated in the AAA. As we said, next week we'll go into what else will be happening during the year in terms of games. And this will be like World of Warcraft is going to be announcing their expansion. They're going to have content updates and story updates. And Star Wars The Old Republic is going to have the story update that we didn't get in the 7.5 release or 7.6 or whatever it was. So those will be coming. We'll talk about those next week. But these are more like the big anticipated AAA that we've seen the trailers on and everybody is sort of really excited about. Sooner rather than later, something that's coming in February that a lot of people are excited about is Monster Hunter Wilds. This is definitely gets into this more of a Souls-like territory. So as we go through this, these are anticipated games, but not necessarily my most anticipated games. And this kind of sort of falls on the former. It's an anticipated game, but not so much on my list. I'm not that big into sort of like the Souls-like action, learn the fight kind of games, dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge, and you did it kind of games. But this one looks very good. It is anticipated, and the people that have been playing early access and betas of it are really liking it. So I think it's going to be high on people's list. I don't know if you saw this. Did you see the trailers for Doom?
Yes, I did. Yes.
I think this is certainly anticipated because it's Doom, and why not?
Right. I mean, Doom has always been and will always be.
Right.
Is how I feel about Doom. In fact, I played Doom back in the day, and Doom and Wolfenstein before I sort of refined, first-person shooters out of my preferred, type of game.
Because it was like that was all there was.
There's that, and also Doom went through a little bit of a, I don't know, culture shift. And when they get the first really scary one, that's when I was like, "Ooh, no, I don't think I'm here for this one."
Yeah, when the demons only have 5 polygons, it's not as
they're
much
not as scary.
and-
Right? That's right. That's exactly right.
And now it's sort of like terrifying, and your weapons are terrifying, and there's
that weapon that grinds up the skulls for ammunition.
New
It's
skulls.
so well
dropping.
done.
Right.
It is so well done. Yeah.
So this is Dark Ages, so it's more of like a medieval theme Doom, which is kind of cool. So less of the tech.
It's meant to be a prequel to the original Doom. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's looking very cool. I'm sure it'll be fun for Doom fans. One of the things that I always think about in Doom, and you said playing it back in the day. Yeah, we played it in like late 80s, I think is when we first started playing it.
It was,
Uh
yeah, I
it
mean,
it
90s, but yeah.
it was it was this game that did this weird thing where it was like the game to define games for a little while. And then every time a new piece of hardware or a platform or something came out, you'd play Doom on it, to the point where, when PDAs sort of first got invented, it would be like, and someone adapted it so you could play Doom on it. I remember at one point there was like some Texas Instruments calculator watch, and somebody got Doom running on that. It was like, if there were, Blackberries, you could run, somebody got Doom running on it. It was like the thing to port to any new piece of tech or hardware, a new smart microwave, and you can run Doom on it. So I feel like that is one of the places that Doom will continue to persist in, as the tech thing that you can show that the device you have is also a platform, because you can run Doom on it. Another beloved franchise that's getting a new release. A lot of these are like new releases in franchises. In fact, most of them, I was looking through, most of them are like Monster Hunter Wilds is a franchise. Yeah. Doom is a franchise. Metal Gear Solid Delta: Snake Eater is a franchise release.
It's actually a remake.
Yeah, Snake Eater was out there. So it's the Solid Delta remaster of Snake Eater. So franchise remake, but highly anticipated. It looks really good. It's looking interesting. Especially for fans of Konami and the Metal Gear Solid genre. I think we'll be happy to have this game and play it. Action RPG story, and there's Solid Snake hanging out. And then also on the list that came up next, just in no particular order, really, is Grand Theft Auto 6. Talk about anticipated. This is definitely one of the am I gonna have to mute this tab? Mute site. Yes. Highly anticipated. But what about for you? Is this anticipated for you, Sema?
So GTA has never been like in my wheelhouse, but I am so impressed by what I've seen of it so far. I was rewatching the trailers today, and I was thinking, if this were a TV show, I would check it out. I don't know if I want it all up in my head like a game gets in your head.
Right.
But I watch it. I'm like, I'm interested in those characters. I'm interested in that world where things are happening, and yeah, incredible.
I think it will be a thing that I play, and I was never a big GTA fan, ever. And same thing. It's not, do I want to live in Florida man land with all of these people that we're seeing on the screen and have that in my head, for 77% of my game time, as Satisfactory was? It's not, probably not. But as you say, it's so well rendered. It's such and it's going to be such a gaming event. I'm going to want to check it out. And who knows, maybe it'll be my new thing. Maybe I'll be all Grand Theft Auto. Be my new jam. As we think about, and I know you came to this conclusion, we just quick note in the pre-show, what might be a game of the year contender.
Right.
I think this is probably one of the ones that's up there. I think, yeah, definitely
totally
going to be a contender.
It kind of depends on when it actually does release, or if something releases after it that's like head and shoulders above, but I think it's a really strong contender.
Yeah. Just for how much it's anticipated and what it looks like so far.
For not having played it at all. I mean, just from the look of it. And I'm assuming that the game play will be excellent. So maybe it won't be, but that's what I'm assuming. Yeah,
it does have those expectations to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think it will be difficult for them to lean into what they are. And I think
Right.
if anything, you
I feel
know,
like they already know how to do what they're doing.
right. And if as long as they like keep on keeping on with and lean into what they are, they'll be good. It doesn't seem like one of those that where they would want to like try something different, or be something different. You know, we're going to be a kinder, softer, Grand Theft Auto. You know, we're going to back it down to, petty theft auto.
Right.
No, they're gonna keep it. It looks from all accounts at what we would expect and what the fans will expect. Another one though, next on the list, which will have to deal with some expectations and already seems to be bumping up against expectations, is Assassin's Creed Shadow. So Assassin's Creed Shadows is coming relatively soon, right? I think that's another February. Yep, Valentine's Day. That's a Valentine's Day release. Something to get your significant other a samurai sword to the face. But this does have a big expectations road to climb. It's also, from a studio that's obviously gets a lot of pushback these days, Ubisoft.
Right.
So it's in a tough spot. I expect this to not be a Game of the Year contender and probably not even on the top 5 list, only because it's Ubisoft.
They're coming from a hole. They're not right. They're not on the shoulders of their previous game. They have to make up for their previous games in a way that you can't really do. It's just like public opinion.
Right. They're also trying some different things, and they've got some different characters. And again, it's another one of those situations where trying different things, no, not good. You have to do something fresh and new and different, but it has to be exactly what we had before too.
Right.
So that's going to be a tough one for them. Another one that's in a weird spot, we'll have to see where it goes, is Borderlands 4. This is one of those that was announced as probably 2025, and it's on everybody's 2025 list, but I think could be one of the ones that slips to 2026. In fact,
Why do you think that?
well, if you could go to their Steam page, they didn't say, they're not saying it's coming in 2025.
They just say soon.
No, they did. No, actually, they say coming soon, but they didn't commit to a date. But they do say
Right.
coming 2025 in their description here from Gearbox.
Yeah.
But it's another kind of like big game. They do have a little bit of a hole to dig out of, mostly because of the movie. They do have a lot of expectations to live up to. I think it just could be one of those ones that they get further in the development cycle, see where they're at. We're hoping to get it out in 2025 and may push it to 2026 to make sure that they can get it as solid as they need it to be the Borderlands 4 that it needs to be. So we'll see. We'll see on that one.
Looter shooter.
Another entry in a series, Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Boy, they did this when I looked at this earlier. Where's my birthday? 14th of June. You got to fill out a whole questionnaire. It's not just you have to fill out your birthday in 3 combo boxes, then you have to check that you've read the terms and conditions and you have to accept them, and you have to accept their cookie policy, and then you get to look at the website for Death Stranding 2 on the beach.
Yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, yep.
It's like,
You lost me there.
geez, guys. So if you played Death Stranding, this is a sequel. So if you played Death Stranding, you carried the fetus around for the whole game. And now you're in Death Stranding 2, and it looks like the baby is hatched. And this will be an exploration of more of the Death Stranding world. And, there's sort of weird, wild story elements to it, as everything we would expect from a Kojima production.
Right.
We'll see where that goes. I don't think this will be Game of the Year, but I think this could end up like being a highly acclaimed and maybe like in a top 5. Another entry in a series, but taking a little bit of a turn, from Software. We're going to get Elden Ring Night Reign this year as well. So Elden Ring Night Rain is a standalone adventure, so it isn't a direct sequel. It's not DLC for Elden Ring. And it's purportedly designed as a co-op experience, and you're supposed to play it with a friend. I don't know exactly how that's going to work. It also sounded like they might be introducing some survival elements. You sort of like need to survive, take on the creeping night and the dangers within, and survive the creeping night. We don't know everything about it yet, but because From Software and the world building is so beloved, this is one of those I think that will do relatively well, and will probably be highly acclaimed. I think this could make the top 5 lists. The fact that it's, they're taking a little bit of a different direction and it's a co-op experience, or maybe designed for co-op, but you can play it solo. I don't know for sure. Like all these things that we're seeing are just a solo person. We'll see. We'll see where it ends up, and we'll see if it's close enough to what people want from a From Software's Elden Ring game, or if it goes too different so it doesn't, get to 100%. Because if it's everything that people love from those Elden Ring games, I think this could be a contender for Game of the Year. Just because of who they are and what From Software tends to bring to the table and how people end up loving those games.
Right.
Because hard is better in a lot of reviewers' minds for some reason.
Well, and right, and actually supporting a hard game is the there's no way to get in trouble doing that.
Right. You're cool, and
Yeah.
Your critical evaluation is valid if you say that, oh, it's super hard and that's good.
Right.
Nobody's going to disagree with you on that. Although, I kind of do.
Right. But yes, what we say doesn't really figure into Game of the Year.
Right. There's how accessible is your game to gamers in general, or even your audience. And if the game's just not accessible because it's just way too hard, then is it really everything it could be?
Well, I think so. Yeah, I totally think so. I definitely think that there's a place for hard games.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's a place for them too.
I really don't think that every game has to be everything. And I know that's a hard spot that MMOs are in, but I'm glad that there are games out there of all different types in strata.
But then would I call it Game of the Year if
Yes.
If it's
Yes, because just Game of the Year doesn't necessarily mean sold to the most people.
No, but
Like,
but for
like
me,
a
but
just
I'm
like
saying for my personal game
Oh.
of what I would nominate
Oh,
for
I
Game
see
of
what
the
you're
Year
saying.
as a game reviewer,
Yeah.
and of the things that
Right.
I would tend to give it a like a point deduction, just because yes, it's beautiful and it's well rendered. Like, same reason I give platform exclusives a little bit of a deduction. It
Right.
could be an excellent game, but if only if only 1/10 of all gamers can even play it, it gets a little bit of a deduction in my calculus, which
To
isn't.
me, it's like Academy Awards, right? Like a film could be good to a bunch of Academy members, and rightly so and deserving, but it still might not be one that I would watch or enjoy.
Right. Exactly. And if that's the case, if it's, in my mind, that would be a little bit of a deduction for that kind of movie.
If you
Unless,
wouldn't watch it, you mean?
yeah, if it's boring or or like too niche and nobody. Yes,
I don't
it's
know.
it's super well made, but nobody likes it. For
No, I
me,
don't.
what I would
No, I
nominate
did
would
not.
be.
That's not what I said. That nobody likes it. I said that I didn't like it.
Yeah, well, if the general movie-going public and the general gaming population, if nobody can play it or nobody likes it or nobody, it could be a beautiful piece of art, but if nobody wants it, It just for the kinds of lists that I would want to put together, I would give it a little bit of a deduction. Now, that's not my game award, and I don't think they're wrong for still putting it at the top of the list, or I don't think it's wrong for it to make it, give it the Academy Award. I'm not saying that. I'm saying for the Max Awards, it gets a little bit of a deduction.
Right.
Metroid Prime 4: Beyond. This is also coming in 2025. And this is another interesting one. I think this is another one that could go, could be one of those kind of like, because of what it, because of what it is and the genre, this could end up making, because it's Metroid, it could end up making like the top 5 or the Game of the Year nominations, if it performs up to the expectations of what people want from a Metroid game. Because it's a beloved franchise. It's got a lot of momentum behind it in history, and it's sort of like a games industry. Oh, Metroid, it's Metroid. So we'll see. I don't think Game of the Year, but I think it could end up being on the lists. So those are kind of like the AAA. I had a few more. I think that would be fun to add on and talk about, which were more of like the ones I'm highly anticipating and I expect to play more than these. I may try all of these, but got a game like Civ 7. So this is on a lot of the AAA game lists too, but this is definitely one that I will play. Civilization, a beloved series again. A little bit of a tough spot. I don't think expect this to be Game of the Year, because already hardcore fans are, I would say, just have trepidation on some of the evolution of what they're trying to do with the game. Still, it could still just be beloved and meet all of their expectations. But they're trying a couple things a little bit different in the way the game pacing works, with how long the game phases work, and then your ability to switch civilizations from phase to phase within your game. There's some of those kinds of things that people are hearing that and going, I don't know about that in my Civilization game. So we'll see if it can get over that from an expectations perspective. Otherwise, I expect it to just be a great game, regardless. In the RPG, sort of first-person fantasy RPG genre, Avowed is something that's highly anticipated, and looks like it could be a hit. I don't know if it can reach the levels of like a Baldur's Gate, and probably not Game of the Year, but this could end up being top 5 if the story checks out. And that's what it'll be difficult to see how far they can go. The fact that it's first person only, I'm not as excited about. You know how I am, and I think you are too. Prefer some third person action in our games.
Yeah. I don't like the only hands.
Yeah, just the hand out there in front of you. And I tend to need to get work into it and get used to it. Otherwise, it can give you a headache, depending on sort of what the aspect ratio is and what the camera depth is. It's a little bit more difficult. Plus, you lose track of your character. I know it's supposed to immerse you more, but I find it immerses me almost less. It kind of like immerses me as a person, but it gets me less invested in my character, which is a part of games that I really like. I like to be invested in my character. I like to see the armor that I got, and the character. You go to the character customization screen and do whatever, and never see it again. I guess you could see your hand. It's not as fun.
Yeah, you see it in the cutscenes, but that's not nearly enough for me.
This next game, you check this out too. Tell me a little bit about what your intro is to Split Fiction, and if you're anticipating it.
Well, I mean, I like the premise of it, which is that it's a co-op game, which we can talk about in a second, but it's two writers that get trapped in the world that they created. And one of them's a fantasy writer and one of them's a science fiction writer. So they go through these areas, and some are like fantasy settings and some are like sci-fi settings. I love everything about that. But I'm kind of hung up on the co-op thing because like life is hard enough without having to schedule your ability to play a game with with the schedule of another person. But
Yes.
that might be great for some people.
So this is Hazelight Studios who did It Takes Two. I too am really impressed. I really love the concept,
Yeah.
the idea of the split fiction. The one girl's a fantasy creative and the other one's a sci-fi creative, and they even like butt heads. They don't even like their other genres, but they're going to have to like team up, and you're going to get their story, and like each of them is going to play to their strengths, and each level you go to will be like it will alternate between fantasy and sci-fi as you go through it. I think that's really cool and clever.
And I like puzzles, and I like wall jumping and stuff, but I don't like doing it with the feeling that someone else is waiting on me or watching me, or they
Or
finished
relying on
already,
me.
now I have, yeah, or relying on me. I like, even though I'm not good at wall jumping, I like doing it. I like trying over and over until I succeed at it, but it's not publicly, just on my
Right.
own little
Right.
schedule,
And I feel the same way. I think it would potentially be fun to play, but trying to play it with another person, another person whose gameplay ability you match with evenly enough that it would not going to make it frustrating for either of the people. That's
And
a
maybe
tough call.
Yeah, maybe those things that I'm thinking of have been completely ironed out in some way. So I'm curious.
Yep.
I'm curious.
Yep. But really, really fun idea and concept, and way to go after it. So I like what they're doing there.
Yeah, I do too. Like if this was a book, I definitely would I'd be clicking on that in my cart.
Another one that I will definitely play, but has expectations to live up to, that and a couple other points of friction, is Fable. So there's the new Fable coming out. So RPG game, first person RPG, does look interesting and fun, looks well rendered, looks pretty well. The game looks pretty, but the main character doesn't look pretty enough for the small G gamers out there. So that's one point of friction that they need to get over. I don't know why that has to be an issue or a talking point, but that's dumb. But Fable was always a fun game, and the idea of can they get enough of like the flexibility and the weird things that you can do and the way you can play your own game and the humor that's sort of like built into the Fable world. If all of that sort of comes through, then it'll be a great game. I don't expect it to be game of the year just because I think there are going to be people that are complaining about it. And I don't think it's, it'll have a couple of those glitches that'll make it difficult for the journalists to say this is going to be number one. But I think it'll be a hit, which will be fun. Here's one that is now anticipated, but I don't think would have made any of the top anticipated lists prior to this. But especially since we saw it in Secret Level, this is called Shadow Labyrinth. I pulled this out. Did you actually watch the trailer?
No, but I feel like I've played the trailer.
So the Pac-Man level in Secret Level, the Pac-Man episode of Secret Level, was basically a version of what you'll...
Right. It was like an ad for this game.
Yeah, kind of an ad. Kind of like the lore of what you'll be doing here. Not 100%, but kind of. So you will play the dude that was broken out of the chamber that the Pac-Man ball encourages along to try to succeed. You must consume, you must eat to survive, and you must find your way out of the labyrinth.
And oddly, I kind of like the look of this game, even though it's sort of like, I don't know, retro or something, or cartoony compared to many of the games we've just been talking about.
Yeah, it's a side-scrolling platformer. So it's not my favorite kind of game to play. So it's side-scrolling platformer. Looks like it could even be like a little bit of roguelite or roguelike. or what's the other genre I'm thinking of? Anyway, but you're gonna have to be this person, side scroller, fight through the levels, get your abilities, use the puck as one of your abilities. At some point, you can sort of like see it being used here at the end. Not as much as it was in the episode where it consumed the player, the person, and killed them. It looks like you more get to use it as a power. But it looks a lot like another highly anticipated game, which people don't know if it's going to ever come out, let alone in 2025, which is Silksong. So it's that kind of game. I just think it's fascinating because the secret level episode.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll see. I think this could be one of those that ends up in the top 5 nominee list, just because it's so. It's coming out of left field. It's getting a lot of people's imaginations going, and it's the kind of game that you can still can be critically acclaimed, even if it's not the kind of, even if it's not the game everybody plays.
I mean, it's really going to test people's, ability to morph their game playing from their previous idea of a game to this new idea of a game in a way that other games really haven't done.
Right. So we'll see where that one goes. A fun one, which I do not think will make any of the Game of the Year nomination lists, but it will be one that I'm watching, is Sunderfolk. So we did talk about this on the podcast earlier when it sort of got announced. This is one of the first Dreamhaven published titles. So this is a Mike Morhaime publisher. The sub studio underneath there is called Secret Door. This was kind of a weird one, though, for this to be the first Dreamhaven game that they're coming out with. The way it works is you play it on a big screen and you play it with friends. So it's a co-op game and you each take a turn. So it's turn-based co-op, kind of Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. And your phone has an app on it that has your character, and that's sort of like how you play your turn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like almost like a board game you're playing on the TV with your phone, as you being able to take your turn, and you go around and you play with other people. Maybe you can only play up to 4. I don't know how many people you can play with, but it's this couch co-op on the big screen with your phone as the controller, and that's the game. Bold.
But I can't believe you actually have to be co-located with the rest of your team.
So you think you'll be able to do it online too? That would be interesting.
Don't you think they have to? I mean,
I don't know. So it's a couch co-op turn-based tactical RPG.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's the word I'm looking for? But it's a couch co-op, but the couch is like a virtual couch, or can be. I hope anyway, because that seems too limiting if you have to be co-located. But I think this game has the potential to be the actual sort of D&D that people want experience, because it's very the turn-based and the moving one hexagon at a time and all that stuff, and it's almost like an entry-level D&D. Like the game tells you what your abilities are instead of you having to read 1,000 books. I can see it taking off in that way.
Will Sunderfolk be online also?
I agree. Plausible Denial says, some people don't even have couches. I don't have a couch.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be. Nothing on the Steam page says online, which is another reason I think it's just a weird one for the first Dreamhaven game to be this, because it is weird and different and bold, but it's different enough that I don't think it's going to be a breakout hit.
I think what this is, so like if you played, actual D&D and you can have it with these online tools, but you still are, the driver and the person who's doing all the work. And then you jump ahead to these other games like Baldur's Gate 3 that are that are computer video games in the style of D&D, but there's this gap in between. And I think that's what this
Now,
might be.
that's brilliant. Plausible Denial in the chat room said, this is the opening for all the those gamer chairs. Now they're going to start selling gamer couches. The NVIDIA couch and the game gear couch. Yeah, exactly. So, that's Dreamhaven's long game. That's their play. Good call.
Yep.
Two other games that I am highly anticipating, which I think will be hits, but probably not in the top 5. Subnautica 2 is supposed to come out in 2025. I hope it does. This is another one that I think could be on the bubble as one of the kinds of things that could slip, depending on how much work they have to do on it and how much they wanted to sort of do early access. But I could see hitting early access in 2025 probably comfortably. Subnautica was a great game. I'm looking forward to a Subnautica 2. I think that would be really fun. It's first person typically. I don't think you can play in third person, but this one works well in first person for me for whatever reason. Because it's a little lower poly, it's a little stylized, and what you're doing in the 3D environment in underwater, where you can sort of go all directions, it just felt fine to me. Another place that's supposed to be really, really good, and I play an adapted version of Subnautica in VR, is this would be a great VR game as well. So we'll see. Looking forward to it. I'll play it regardless because it's crafting survival adventure with a story, and that's my jam.
I like the look of it. I mean, I can see I could easily have some of these screenshots as my wallpaper. I don't know if I'll play it though, because underwater and 3D. We'll see.
It's also a game built around thalassophobia. It's made to make you feel afraid of the deep ocean, which is a fun part of it.
Right.
So if you have any thalassophobia, you will not want to play it. Do they have an anti-thalassophobia mode? Does any game? No. Arachnophobia? Yes.
I have a fear of drowning. I mean,
don't most people?
yeah, I was gonna say yes.
Does anyone not have a fear of drowning?
I prefer not to drown.
I think it's more of a problem if you don't have a fear of drowning. Nah, I'm good with that. And then last on the highly anticipated list, which a lot of people are putting on their 2025 list and highly anticipating, which should hit early access, but this is one I also think could slip because there's just so much work for them to do, and it's Funcom, and they have a lot of moving parts for this, is Dune Awakening. This is both crafting survival adventure. It's also branded Dune narrative and story in an alternate Dune universe, and it has an MMO part of it, not 100% of it. So it does a lot of weird, fun things mashed up together that also make it difficult to deliver on. So they're in a tough spot. A lot of work for them to do, but I am highly anticipating this one. Yeah, so Conan Exiles, I liked. So I like what Funcom can do. I like everything that they've talked about so far. I like the setting. I like survival, the survival set in a little bit more of a sci-fi setting. I like what they're talking about in terms of the vehicles you can build and the buildings you can build and the combat tech trees that you can explore. The part that I don't like is their MMO part, which is there's a big open world zone that you go to. So you sort of like have the survival zone where you're going to build your base, but then you have these open world zones. They're interesting. So there's a big, it's called the Deep Desert. And you go there and there's spice blows, there's things to do, but it's also free for all PvP, which is that's a big detriment from my perspective. Now they say you'll be able to avoid PvP if you want. You'll be able to see people coming from far away, so you'll be able to like get up on out of there, and you won't have to PvP. But you will get kicked out of a spice flow if it's a really popular one. But best laid plans for PvP. If you do open PvP, it just becomes like a Zorg fest 90% of the time. So we'll see if they can get around that at all. If not, what that might just end up doing is locking out a big chunk of the game. That's my fear. Is it's just going to lock out a big chunk of the content, like the end game content, that unless you're up for, hardcore PvP with a bunch of elite guilds, that it won't be very fun beyond the early stages. Now, I'll still have a ton of fun with the early stages and the crafting and building. Will it be a long-term fun? That remains to be seen.
And maybe it'll turn out to be a really good game for the people who enjoy PvP.
Yes. Yeah, no, it definitely could be that. For the PvP crowd, for any of the people that like sort of like the people that like extraction shooters, it could be a hit with that crew for sure. Two games that are definitely in the not coming in 2025 that I just thought were worth a mention, because I am still highly anticipating both of them, but there's no way in 2025 for either of these. But I'm watching closely, constantly, is Star Citizen and Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation is at least in alpha. Both of them, I would say, are in alpha. Star Citizen has been alpha for like 10 years now. I think the latest record was they've crossed the $700 million mark in funding so far. Even Squadron 42, which is their single player game that they have been saying for a couple years now is almost ready to release. I have no faith that that's going to come in 2025, even though they've acted like it will be. But it's an amazing game, an amazing platform. I can't wait for it to be worthy of early access or, an actual release. I think that would be really cool if it ever did get there. But I don't know if it ever will. Ashes of Creation, I have a little more faith that will release someday. Not in 2025, probably not even in 2026. But that one is playable right now in alpha. I wasn't that impressed with it, unfortunately. So I hope they can take it the places that they're hoping it will go, and make it more of a full MMO. They're just, and I hope their vision changes to some degree, because they're on this mission to make it old school. And there's like a lot of these studios that it's their vision to go old school. When you were a 12-year-old and WoW was fresh and new and you didn't mind like grinding for, a week to try to find that one drop. And it took you a year to level up your character. Wasn't that fun? To get all that rep. Well, I mean, it is fun for some people and it is fun in some ways. But definitely grindy.
Yeah. If the combat is rewarding, fulfilling, and a fun activity.
And it's not right now. That's part of the problem. It's not, and you're 1/10 as effective unless you're in a big group, which is also not always fun thing to have to do.
Right.
Group up with
At
big groups.
least in that setting,
random
though,
people.
you can find the big group as opposed to like a co-op game where it's got to be a friend you already have.
Yeah, true. I watch very closely the discussions and the Reddit threads, and all of it right now is all just people saying, this is how my grinding session got interrupted and I couldn't grind enough, and all the good grinding spots to grind out the levels. And it's like, not only are they not having fun doing it and is it not working, but the thing that they're trying to do isn't fun in the first place. Grinding isn't actually fun. You do get satisfaction ultimately out of it potentially, but there's other ways these days.
Yeah, I mean,
to have fun.
I got some perspective on that this week because I was playing some older content in WoW in service of a different goal that I had that I was working on, and I ran into like a zone in a series of quests where every single quest was like you had to read the quest, figure out where to go, what to click on, where to take it to. Everything was like this special little butterfly of a quest. And I just got so fatigued by that. And every time there was like a quest that says kill 20 demons, I was like, oh, thank God.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I mean, there's
Just
there's definitely a happy medium.
happy medium. That's true. But the happy medium is not, 100 hours of grinding, 5 mob locations. Which is all there is in the alpha right now too. That's part of the problem. It's like, oh, well, did you grind church? Yeah, we're grinding church. Oh, are you grinding the other one? Yeah, we're grinding the other one with all the people on the server are all fighting for mobs, and it's not multi-tag. So yeah. Anyway, so we'll see where that one goes to. But those two are on my anticipated list for sure. So tons of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tons of good stuff coming in 2025. And as I said, I think next week we will do the thing where we'll try to get the RPG stuff going, a look ahead at what's coming for the RPG games, the MMORPGs that we play, what's coming in roadmaps for existing games, not necessarily as much as here's a big release, but what's on the release schedule, what's on the release roadmap, what's getting an update, what's getting expansions. I think it'll be interesting to go through that. But I think that's it for today. Anything else before we wrap up, Sema?
No, I say let's bring it on 2025.
Let's do it. All right. So that is it for us. All the feed and subscribe links, of course, are on newoverlords.com, and our videos up on YouTube/newoverlords. Please come chat with us in our Discord at newoverlords.com/Discord. And you can also follow on all the social networks, and we'll keep you up to date there as well. And with that, we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.